Hello, this is Sam from Sound on Sound magazine. I'm at the NAMM show in Anaheim, California. You're probably not, otherwise you wouldn't be watching this video. And I'm with Nuno Fonseca from Sound Particles. Hello,
Hi.
Nuno. How are you?
Good morning.
Great to see you. You're showing a very intriguing new software synthesizer, which is possibly the world's first sort of surround sound synthesizer.
Yeah, the idea is a 3D synthesizer where you play a note and you get instant spatial sound out of it. It supports more than 30 formats from ambisonics, Dolby Atmos, binaural, and many other things. And the idea is to allow the musicians to also explore spatial, and you play and you explore the spatial, and it's a lot of fun and very interesting to explore in terms of spatial music.
So in terms of the basic synthesis principles, is it a sort of conventional synth that just has more output paths?
Essentially, it's a traditional subtractive and FM synthesizer. So you can use subtractive with filters, the regular oscillators. You can also use FM. And then what the synth has is that it uses 8 oscillators. Each oscillator has its own 3D position. So if I play a note, I can actually have like 8 objects or 8 sound sources moving around. If I'm playing 10 notes, I'm getting 80 sound sources. And then what we've done was to integrate the 3D engine also as a part of the synthesizer, which means that you can use LFOs to control elevation and azimuth. You can use envelope generators and say that the note starts in the back, attacks to the front, releases above my head, per oscillator. We can use the sequencer to control also 3D positions of the sequencer and create 3D arpeggios. So a lot of things by simply integrating the 3D engine within the synthesizer, and have MIDI, LFOs, envelope generators, and all of those things controlling space.
And how does this integrate with something like Dolby Atmos, where you have objects and beds? Does it all output to a bed, or can you generate objects from it?
Currently, it outputs as a bed for a matter of scalability, because once again, one note, it's 8 objects, which means that if I'm playing 20 notes, and sometimes in terms of polyphony reach 20 notes, that would mean 160 objects. That is already more than Dolby Atmos support. So currently what you can do is you can use, for instance, 7.1.2, output this as a bed, okay? Or eventually, if you want, you can create something like set up like 22.2 and put these as objects, creating the equivalent of a 22.2 using Dolby Atmos. So there are several possibilities, but the most straightforward is simply to have 7.1.2 out of it into a bed in Dolby Atmos, and that's ready to use.
And I noticed you're demoing it with an Expressive Osmos keyboard. Yeah. Does this mean it's MPE enabled?
Not yet. Within 2 weeks will be. Okay.
All right.
So we are doing the final touch because we want to make sure that we tested the synthesizer with multiple MP keyboards and not with a single one. So within 2 weeks it's going to be MP compatible, which means that you can use all of the MP things to even control things in space. Imagine aftertouch controlling the position of the space, or using other things like that, or currently using aftertouch, poly aftertouch, and other things. But the idea is to allow you to create these amazing things with the keyboard and even use the performance to control the sounding through.
Wow, that sounds incredible. Well, I'm hoping you're going to do a little bit of a deep dive for us in a second, but before we do that, is this available to buy now?
Yeah, it's available since 2 days ago, okay? We're going to release 2 versions. SkyDust Stereo, it's limited to channels, which means it's stereo and binaural, 3D sound over headphones. And then we have the full SkyDust 3D that is available now in the market also.
And what's the price?
So the price, the stereo versions has a special discount campaign of $149, and the SkyDust 3D, it's $299.
Wonderful. Well, thanks for your time, and I'm looking forward to hearing what it can do.
Okay, so let's have a look of some of the presets. Or for instance, something like this. Or for instance, or for something with a more soundtrack. Or if you want something more mellow. Or if you want something more like a deep note kind of thing. And of course, there is a lot of things to explore. So how does this work? Well, internally, what we have here is we have 8 oscillators, each oscillator with a 3D position. You pretty much have things organized in these tabs, oscillators, the filters, FM, pitch. But the most interesting thing, of course, it's the spatial. You can, for instance, say oscillator 1 is over here, oscillator 2 over there. You can even create some randomness and say, okay, I don't want to be always there, I'll be somewhere over there. Then if you want movement, you can come in and say, okay, I want this oscillator to start in the back, attacks to the center, sustains in the left, and then releases above my head. I can do different independent things for each one of the oscillators. I can use a LFO to control, in this case, azimuth or elevation. We also have movement modifiers like attacks here, starts rotating, do a lot of interesting things. In terms of sequencer, of course, most people are used to the traditional pitch bar sequencers. For us, we thought it would much more be interesting to have a keyboard as a sequencer. You can even use polyphonic and create polyphonic arpeggios in interesting ways. And here you can also use 3D panning and making sure that you get these 3D arpeggios moving around. And then we have effects. You have several 8 additional envelope generators and LFOs that you can use to control any kind of parameter of the synth. Of course, we have the matrix with a lot of possibilities saying, okay, I want this source to control that parameter. And then we have here the keys, the mixer. Sometimes you want to change the balance of equalizers or solo one oscillator to say, now I want this to be over there. You have the macros, pads, and a lot of things here to know exactly what is happening in terms of sound and see. And then, of course, we have this huge amount of formats. In this case, it's a stereo track, so that's why the others are not enabled. But we have things up to 600 ambisonics, 22.2, IMAX, a lot of Dolby Atmos flavors, among many other things. And so this is a very quick overview of SkyDust 3D.